hello from wherever you're joining us, and welcome to the debate night. And you know how we do it. This comes to you every Thursday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. East African time. And of course, the topics we bring on this panel and the debaters that come on this panel are people that you cannot even dare miss. So tonight we're having a very interesting debate session here with former debaters from different schools. Some of them are now in campuses, in different colleges, still debating and of course still enjoying the different discussions that are happening across the country. My name is Okoth Polo, the host of this wonderful program that is the Debate Night. And tonight I'm very proud to introduce to you some amazing people. But you know what? The motion of the day, we are asking ourselves tonight, the morality and contraceptives, morality and the use of contraception. I mean, morality, contraceptives, young people. How do these things even combine? How do these things connect? Tonight, the motion is that the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality of young people in this country today or in this region today. To help us in this motion, on the proposing side, we have some amazing young people. We have Paul Kitui, who is a student of the Nairobi University. And of course, joining us, he'll be telling us straight away he's joining us from. Then we have Francisca Majala, who is also proposing this motion. Francisca Majala is the former president of St. George's Girls High School, Nairobi, and also a staunch debater. On the opposing side, we have Mr. Stephen Omukoko, a student based in Switzerland, formerly from Starehe Boys Center, and Florence Achala. Florence Achala is the former president of the debating club of St. George's Girls School, Nairobi. We are as confused as you are, but we hope they'll keep on showing us the differences. Majala Francisca and Florence Achala, all on the one panel today. Last week, of course, you know what we did. The debate was so powerful. We were asking ourselves, demonstration, civil protest, and corruption, how do they link and which one can be used to fight the other? But tonight, the motion is very different. Welcome to this great debate, dear debaters. Stephen Omukoko, you can turn on your mic and say hello, just hello. Majala, turn on your mic and say hello. Kitui, turn on your mic and say hello. Florence, turn on your mic and say hello to people.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the show. So tonight, as we said, the motion is very clear that the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat of the greatest threat to morality of young people in our country today, or in the East African region today. The proposing side, we have Paul Kitui and Francisca Majala. On the opposing side, Florence Achala and Stephen Omukoko. Each speaker has been briefed on the rules of the debate. Each speaker has been properly briefed on the timings and how the timings are going to work. So we go straight away into the debate. And at this moment, allow me to introduce the first speaker from the proposing side. That is Francisca Majala. Francisca, welcome on stage. Your 1 minute begins now.
Thank you. In 1935, Ireland criminalized contraception, and literature relating to birth control was banned under the 1929 Censorship of Publication Act. The question is, did this have an effect to the morals of the young people in Ireland? This and many other questions is what we are going to answer tonight in relation to proposing the motion that the use of contraception is a threat to the morality of young people. Not just a threat, but the greatest threat to the morality of young people in the society today. My name is Francisca Majala, joining in from Nairobi. Thank you.
Francisca Majala joining in from Nairobi. Thank you so much for being very brief and straight to the point. First speaker from the opposing side, that is Florence Achala. Welcome on stage. Your 1 minute begins now.
Okay, thank you. I am Florence Achala, a passionate debater, and now we as today's opposition strongly believe that the use of contraceptives is not a threat to the morality of young people today. Stephen and I will shed some light to this matter and convince all proposers otherwise. Welcome to the debate.
Welcome to the debate. Thank you so much, Florence Achala. The second speaker, the proposing side, that is Paul Muhisa Kitui. Welcome on stage, brother.
Now, one thing we need to realize about the present day society is that we live in a society that is constantly upholding a sort of procreative liberty. Now, this is not surprising because we live in a society that is getting more and more progressive day by day, and some conservative cultures are slowly eroding. But since I acknowledge this, does not mean I agree with this. We need to realize that children in particular, whether you differ in religion or stance on whatever issue, that children are a gift of God, or if you don't want to say God, you can say children are natural gifts of nature that are things that should be cherished and not seen as burdens. Now,
Your
we
time is
want
up. Your time is up. Thank you. Let's go to the second speaker, the opposing team, Stephen Omukoko.
Yeah, thank you very kindly. I think we have a very big problem today. First of all, the problem of definitions, and especially now that morality is a human construct and may tend to be subjective. But we will not focus on that. We will be focusing on how do we assess our situation and the context that we are in, and also understanding that indeed there is a threat, but why it is not contraceptives is the reason why Florence and I are here, and we hope to prove that through. Thank you.
Very well, very well. Very big thank you to all of you for being very brief and getting us into the mood of the debate. That is the first speaker from the proposing side, Magella Francisca. The first speaker from the opposing side, Florence Achala. Then we also had the second speaker, Stephen Omukoko, joining us from Switzerland, and Paul Kitui, the second speaker of the proposing side. Thank you. Just also to remind you the rules of the House, kindly, in the event that you are not talking or passing a message, kindly just turn off your video so that we keep with the stage together with the moderator as we go on. Of course, now we're done with the first 1 minute for every speaker, and we head to the first speaker, the proposing team, once more. Your 4 minutes begin right now. Now to present your arguments.
Contraception is something that it is being done today by a lot of people who have many reasons. But today I am here to show you that it is the greatest threat to morality of young people today. First of all, contraception makes it easier for people to have sex outside marriage. According to UNICEF, we have 60% of people globally are married between the age of 20 to 25. So this means we have young people in marriages. So because contraception is there and it is something that prevents pregnancy, it creates a leeway for young people to engage in sex outside marriage, and pregnancy being one of the things that people fear the most, especially young people, because of the expenses that come with having babies. Then they find contraceptives like the birth control pills, the IUDs, and the like. It also allows people to have sex purely for enjoyment. As I said earlier, pregnancy is one of the greatest fears of young people who engage in sexual activities. And if you know there is a contraception that will help you to not be able to get pregnant, then they use them. It also biblically, contraception, sex is there for reproduction and procreation so that we can fill the world. And we also have other purposes of sex traditionally and other beliefs that we have. And contraception prevents people from getting pregnant. So it allows people to have sex purely for enjoyment other than the intended purpose of sex being there. We also have young people as young as the age of 15 who have a safe platform for having sex for enjoyment, because they know, I fear getting pregnant, but now because of these contraceptives, I'm not going to get pregnant. So it creates a leeway also for young people to have sex purely for enjoyment. It's also a form of abortion. Contraception operates by preventing implantation and development of a fertilized egg. Take, for example, the IUDs, intrauterine devices, which are considered as abortifacients because since they work primarily by preventing fertilization and implantation of a fertilized egg. And we also have tubal ligation surgery or tubal implants, which block movement of an egg through the fallopian tube. So it comes as a form of abortion since it prevents the implantation of an egg that was already fertilized. And in our society today, we know that abortion is immoral. And if contraception is a form of abortion, then it becomes immoral to the young people today. Those are my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. That is very well, Francisca. Over to the first speaker of the opposing team. That should be Florence Achala. Your 5 minutes begin now.
Yes. First, let's start by defining some important terms in this debate. Morality is the principles concerning the distinction between what is right and what is wrong. Contraceptives is a device or a drug serving to prevent pregnancy. For example, we have the condoms, the oral pills, the intrauterine device, the injections, the implants. Yes, contraception is also known as birth control. So contraception is not wrong. The moral case for contraception is based on the absence. The absence in the eyes of the supporters, there is no any good reason to consider birth control morally wrong. It is essential for procreative ability. If people are not allowed a choice over whether or not to have children, their autonomy and freedom to control their lives is seriously restricted. Among young people, it prevents the conception of unwanted children, and so it reduces the number of possible abortions. Any restriction of birth control is therefore sexual discrimination. Children are expensive and sex is prevalent among young people today. So contraception enables women to enjoy sexual activity on the same basis as men. Restricting birth control on the basis of morality will be denying a woman's right to sexual autonomy. So the use of contraceptives among young people is not a threat to their morality. It is a measure for preventing unwanted pregnancy, for preventing possible abortions, and pregnancy and childbearing affects mostly more women than men. The use of contraceptives is essential to plan for a life. Children are expensive, as we all know. So if among young people who want to engage in sex, and we all know sex is prevalent among young people, the use of contraceptives will prevent all the other things that lead to immorality, the unwanted pregnancy and the possible abortions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We move to the second speaker, the proposing team. That should be Paul Muhisa Kitui.
Thank you. Now, one thing our opponents raise is the issue of birth control. Now, I do agree that as couples and members of society, we need to be responsible when it comes to planning about our families. Now, one thing you need to know about birth control is that it's majorly divided into two sections. There are methods that prevent conception, and then there are post-conception methods. Methods that prevent conception are more of barrier methods. Let's say condoms, maybe use of a diaphragm, or even, planning on the woman's quote-unquote safe days or days that the woman is infertile. Now, on the other hand, you have post-conception methods like hormonal implants, you have IUDs, you have RU486s, and so on. Now, the latter equates to abortion because these happens post-conception, and the life of a child, even legally, begins after conception. So this equates to abortion, and in this category, I would like to talk about contraceptives, which is what we are talking about today. Now, one thing you need to know about contraceptives is that they act by thinning the uterine lining, making implantation difficult for the fetus. It creates a hostile environment for the fetus to inhabit. Now, with this said, it is a moral obligation for us to avoid this. Why? Because of a few reasons. Number one, apart from the abortion method, the abortion issue itself that I'm talking about, there is the issue of making it hostile for subsequent pregnancies. Let's say you're finally ready to have a child. It will come a time when these contraceptives, which do, by the way, have proven adversities, will affect the state of comfort of a fetus during gestation period. It will make it very uncomfortable. Now, I do agree that family planning is necessary. You just need to look at it differently. You need to use methods that are pre-conception, that do not equate to abortion. And the second thing is that the use of contraceptives allows partners or allow people to have multiple sexual partners. Now, apart from being morally wrong in terms of breaking bonds and trusts, contraceptives allow people to have multiple sex partners. This is morally wrong in other ways also. When you look at it from a disease standpoint, for example, you will see that it carries the risk of contracting STIs. Now, once you have an STI, you have an obligation of coming forward and telling the necessary people that need to know you have an STI so that you can abstain from spreading the disease. Now, most people actually don't do this. They go ahead and spread it. Why? Because having sex with contraceptives removes the risk of actually conceiving. Now, with this out of the way, you only have one risk left, and this is the risk of pregnancy. Now, this is the risk of diseases. Now, people always assume, no, my partner can't be sick because of this, because of so and so, but you actually never know. So another moral standpoint is that birth control itself is also risky. We all know its effects. It has proven adverse effects. Now, these might be something that's not directly a moral issue, but the fact that it involves ethical consent to medical advice makes it a moral issue. And it also separates sex from marriage, because marriage, and one key factor of marriage and sexual intercourse, is actually procreation. Now, when you separate these two, you make immoral behavior less risky. Now, apart from that, you also undermine public morality by making it more likely for people to have intercourse outside marriage, and it also weakens the family. Therefore, contraceptives are leeway to a lot of immorality in society. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That is the second speaker from the proposing team. We had the second speaker, the opposing team. That is Stephen Omukoko. Stephen, welcome. Your 5 minutes begin now.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think much of what has been mentioned is about the benefits and the disadvantages of using contraceptives. And we do appreciate that contraceptives, like every other good thing, has its own negative effects. But we also have to understand that human beings are among the few species in the world that have sex for pleasure. All other creatures, actually, or most of them, not all, have sex strictly for reproduction. And that's why they have mating seasons and they go mate and then they have kids. But then because we human beings do not strictly have sex for reproduction, we have sex for pleasure, then we must have a criteria of creating that distinction. I think we have had so many girls telling their boyfriends that they have spoiled their lives, because as soon as you have a child and you're still in school, first of all, you'll not be allowed in school, but beyond that, you will have to stay much longer for 9 months of your time. And so I think contraceptives is one of the major pillars of gender equality, because as Florence mentioned, it allows men and women to have sex on a similar ground. That is, women do not have to worry about carrying a pregnancy for 9 months and bearing responsibility that they were not prepared for. And at the same time, it also allows them to continue their life normally. I mean, many times people say that contraceptives allows people to have many sex partners, but that is not necessarily true. What happens is that people had sex partners even before contraceptives. The Bible has been mentioned and by the proposition, and I think when you think of someone like Solomon had 1,000 wives, clearly it's not because of contraceptives, it's because that is what was considered prestigious at that time. And that is the same point with morality. Morality keeps changing, it keeps shifting. So we cannot afford to buy dogma, because we have to ask questions as why and what are the implications of following dogma strictly as it is. And as such, we also recognize that we live in a society where, look at our advertising industry. It is predicated upon the fact that people will be enticed by sexual desire. And so it's all about appealing to sexual desires. You see beautiful women being posted on various products because they assume that by looking at these people, they will be interested in those products. Why? Because that is how society is at the moment. And so there is a problem, and the problem is not contraceptive. It is a society where we have internet and can access everything that can maybe entice us to engage sexually. We have a lot of things, and the social structures that existed to prevent people from engaging in sex before the appropriate time no longer exist. They continue to fade as time goes by. And so contraceptives are like a safety belt that helps us in a society that is already rotten. So there is a problem. The problem is not contraceptives. Contraceptives are there to help us. And as Florence mentioned, we will have fewer cases of abortion, fewer cases of unwanted pregnancy, fewer cases of children that are neglected. And I go home, I see so many grandmothers having their children, taking care of these children who are having a very desperate life because a girl somewhere could not use contraceptives. I mean, it is very ideal to think or imagine that we will one day be in a world where every child and every young person will abstain. But that is far from true. Now that they will not abstain, why don't we follow the safe measure? And protected sex, which is also a form of contraception, especially the most used device is the condom, which can help people and can also help people who have STIs so that they can enjoy the full experience of being human and having pleasure as human beings. But in the absence of such devices, then we'll have more people getting these diseases and many more people will die and be affected by this. So in as much as we may fear because of what dogma says, we also have to ask questions about the positive impact of our contraceptions and how they're helping our society. And the thing is, it's not the threat to morality. What happens is our morality is already threatened in the society we live right now. Our social structures collapse, starting from the colonial period and going on, and we took on Christianity, which is also fading, and Islam and other religions that we have. And so now that we acknowledge that our morality is already threatened, what do? Then we need contraceptives. So contraceptives are there to help us in a society whose morality is already threatened. Thank you.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, the motion of tonight is the use of contraceptive is the greatest threat to morality of young people in the Kenya of today or in our region today. And on the panel, we are having a team of proposers, two young amazing debaters. That is, we have Paul Kitui and Francisca Majala proposing this motion. And on the other hand, we have Stephen Omukoko and Florence Achala opposing the motion that says the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality of young people today. Issues of sex for pleasure have been mentioned, issues of people securing their future and all that have been mentioned. At this point, I want to allow the members of audience to pose their questions to any specific debater or to any specific team or to make a comment about the motion that we are discussing. As we move on, we have 5 minutes now from the members of audience. Just carry up your hand, just show your hand, and I'll immediately give an opportunity to ask a question. But also in the meantime, remember, we are live on the Camp D Voices Facebook page. You can follow and keep bringing your comments at the Facebook page. I see some other people joining us here saying, you know, my name is the Coco Master. I'm following very keenly. Wilder Smith following very keenly. Marco Makisaya saying, these are brains at work. Okay, we have Bernard Alphonse joining us all the way from, that is Baringo, following also the discussion. So in case of any questions, let me see from the audience, the members of the virtual audience here in our virtual hall. And in absence of that, I'll allow the debaters these 5 minutes to cross-examine each other. Do we have any question from the members of the audience? Just carry up your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. I have a question to Majala. If indeed contraceptives are actually promoting immorality. How come then, with the increase in number of awareness done in the country, that we can actually decrease the consent from 18 to 15, and the majority of those girls, if they are well equipped with the knowledge on reproductive health rights, they can actually use the contraceptive in order to prevent abortion and also prevent themselves from the STIs. Yeah,
I think your question is clear. Asante sana. We head to Dolaman Fatinato. You're on the call, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My question goes to Paul Mukisa. Are there any studies or proven evidence that family planning or contraceptives causes infertility, like you mentioned earlier or alluded to? Thank you.
Okay. Any other question from the members of the audience? To the proposers or to the opposers? Remember, the motion of the day is that the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality of young people. Stephen Omukoko and Florence Achala are opposing this motion, while Paul Mohisa Kitui and Francisca Majala are proposing this motion. You have an opportunity of asking these amazing debaters on the panel your questions right now, or you can also follow us on Facebook. That is on Camp Voices, and keep your comments coming, keep the questions coming. Any other person with a question? Let me see your hand, or you can unmute and say something. Any question? Right? I don't see any other hand up. So, very well. I think I'll move straight to the debaters. You have another additional 3. Maybe you can also ask each other question. Maybe the proposing team, if you have a question to the opposing team, and likewise.
Yeah, I think I have a question to the proposition. I want them to define clearly what they mean by morality and on what basis do they decide what is moral and what is not.
Amazing. You want them to define what they mean by morality and what determines morality to them. Great. Any questions from the proposing team to the opposing team? Any questions? Wonderful. Let's start with the proposing team.
Sorry.
Okay, yes, Mohisa Kitui, go on.
Yeah, I was talking about the fact that okay, we do agree that you have to plan for a family. That is something we don't disagree with. The issue is that why not actually use things that, methods that do not equate to abortion? Because yes, you need to plan for a family, but also remember post conception methods are methods that are proven, they are equated to murder. If they were not so bad, then we wouldn't have court cases for abortion, or rather abortion will not be legal in Kenya. So why do you want to stick with methods that equate to abortion when it's even not acceptable legally and even morally in the wider society? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The question is well received. So I'll start with the proposing team to start addressing the questions which have been raised. The first speaker, we go to the first speaker, proposing team, that is Francisca Majala.
One of our opponents asked how we define morality. We've taken it as to the extent at which something is right or wrong. Yes, and also to the question asked by Manoti, my points were revolving around the purpose of having sex around and how contraception affects the purpose of having sex around. For example, having it outside marriage and purely for enjoyment and the like. And as the advocates who are advocating for the age to be lowered down to 15 years, we can say it was not taken closely to how morality is related to that. Yes, thank you.
We head to the next speaker. The next speaker, that is the first speaker from the opposing side. Your 3 minutes begin now. Who would like to address a question or to address a fellow debater on the panel? Florence Achala.
Okay, I think probably she has not been asked any questions, maybe.
Okay. And in absence of any question, you can take the advantage of this moment to cross-examine the other debater. So don't worry, because the time is yours. The 3 minutes are yours. You can take this moment also to maybe to pass, in case you have a question or there's a specific thing that you'd like these people to address, feel free to do so. Florence Achala. Okay. Florence. Okay. Stephen Omukoko, the second speaker from the...
Yeah, thank you very much. I think when you talk about morality, and one of the reasons why I asked the proposition to define morality for us is because every time we talk about morality, we also have to consider the consequences of upholding such morality. And I think let us try to think of a scenario here where a young child probably engages in sex because they have been tricked by a friend or something. It's very easy. And as human beings, we sometimes bow to pressure and request. We cannot assume that every human being will be so principled that they will be able to maybe maintain or avoid sex until the right time. So now that that is a reality that we are confronted with, I think we have to weigh the outcome. Think of a young child being born because maybe the girl did not use contraceptives or the boy. And so this young child is being born, and these are children who, first of all, come from a very poor background. And usually most of the kids who engage in irresponsible sex tend to also be generally from relatively humble backgrounds. And so usually most of the time, because they do not have access to education, they do not have access to resources. And so they try to find resources. And so through that interaction, sometimes it ends up bad. And so think of this young child who is being born and they have to be subjected to a life that they were not prepared for. Or think of a girl who has sex and never has contraceptives, and they have to raise a family of about 7, 9, 10, because they never use contraceptives. And think about her future and her career. Think about whether she will have the same advantages that boys have, and especially in a world where we are pushing for gender equality and just allowing women to also manifest their true abilities. And the question of morality, sometimes we talk of morality as though the past was very good. And in the past, people could marry as young as 13, as 12, and we will not consider that moral today. And because that does not exist anymore, people have to use contraceptives because the sexual urge has not gone. It is still there with us, and people still have it. And so contraceptives are a way to deal with this. And the claim that contraceptives make people have multiple sexual partners is purely unfounded and baseless, I believe, because this has been happening for a very long time. And that is why even the Bible will dare talk against it. Why? Because it was there already even before contraceptives. And on the question that we were asked about the cases of abortion, yes, we believe that the post-conception issue could lead to abortion, potentially, depending on how you define abortion. But either way, it reduces abortion when the preconception pills or methods are used, devices like condoms are used, then that prevents abortion. So the number of abortions prevented are more than the number of abortions that occurred due to contraceptives. And when we are weighing on morality, we have to consider which of the two is more useful. Do we have contraceptives or we don't? And in this case, it will be we can have contraceptives so that we have less abortions. Thank you.
Fantastic. Florence Achala would like to pose a question to the proposing team.
Yes, I would like the proposers to give us the Christian ideas about contraception that come from the Bible, the Quran, because they're saying that contraception is a great threat to morality, and morality can be based on the teachings from Christianity, from the Muslims. So I would like them to give us the Christian ideas about contraception. Yes.
Amazing. To the proposing team, Francisca Majala and Paul Kitui. Francisca, come back to the panel. Do we start with Paul Kitui? A minute, okay. You can respond to this.
I think I'll take that question. She asked to answer what basis we use to say that something is moral or not. One thing you need to realize is that the Bible won't give each and every specific solution to the detail. I mean, for example, the Bible says, "Do not steal." I can go and steal someone's phone or laptop or whatever. That doesn't mean that laptops existed there. It's just a general knowledge that you shouldn't take someone's possession. 2,000 years ago plus, technology was very basic. So it's not more specifics with the topic of contraceptives itself, because it's a new innovation that came over time, but rather it is something of, you have a general knowledge of what is right and wrong. You have a conscience that tells you, there's also common sense that tells you something is right and something is wrong. And to Stephen, I think your answer tells me that you have, agreed that immoral. You've just said that, but the cases will be reduced if these and these happens. We define life as you have life when your heart is beating, when there is blood flowing in your body, and immediately conception happens, the organs start forming. There is the heart, there is blood flow, and there is everything, which is why conception makes a fetus equated to a person. A fetus is equated to a person because the fetus contains some crucial organs. Within the first 3 months, the fetus will have a heart, the brain will start forming, the limbs. Therefore, this is a person you want to murder, which is not right. And yes, again, back to my opening statement, the progressive and liberal society that really enhances a more birth control culture with emphasis on the control part is something that is eroding away some of these conservative and moral values that we uphold. But that is why there are also people with conservative views. You go to whichever political spectrum, even in the US with the politics, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, disagree on such issues, by the way. And in this particular issue, especially on the basis of morality, I believe that abortion and post-conception methods are immoral, they are wrong, they equate to murder basically. And on the person who asked me about my sources, I don't think I don't think I would actually go to a source that's not credible to look for my findings. I personally read articles from the CDC and the WHO, the World Health Organization, when I was researching on this topic, particularly on contraceptives. They do have effects. The head of the CDC has had a lecture about this. That's the Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's a renowned doctor in the States, and common knowledge to everyone who has heard this lecture is that contraceptives can be effective, but they can also make the womb hostile for subsequent pregnancies or fetuses that may inhabit the womb. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Stephen Mukoko, I'll give you this opportunity just respond in case you have any, because your name has been mentioned twice by these the debaters. Then after that, I'll allow members of audience just some quick comments, then come back to the debaters to give their closing remarks. So Stephen Mukoko.
Yeah, I think the proposition, just like we do, see that there is a problem, but I think there's a problem with understanding what the actual problem is, in the sense that maybe he mentioned that I find abortion immoral. I did not make a comment about it being moral or immoral, but what I said is the use of contraceptives helps prevent the number of abortion cases that we have, because if people did not get pregnant in the first place, then there will be no need for abortion. And also, I think the reason why I said we might disagree sometimes is because many people consider a fetus sentient. That means that it has life that has to be valued at different stages. For some people, it's 2 months. For other people, it's 4, 6 months. That is depending on who they are. But overall, we agree that indeed we have to minimize cases of abortion, and it should not be something that everyone goes for every time unless there is real need to do that. But when we say something is moral, the point is we weigh the consequences. And we don't think it's also moral for a young child to be born and they don't have a mother or father take care of them, and they have to suffer all this because they were born at the wrong time or at an unexpected moment before people were prepared for responsibility. I don't think that is moral. And we also don't think it's moral for a girl to have so many children to the extent that they will not have food to feed these children because they were not in school studying, they were taking care of babies. We don't think that is appropriate. And we could also consider that immoral because consequences also have to be weighed when considering what is moral or not.
Thank you very much. And at this point, I'll just give you a small break as I pick any comment from the members of audience briefly before coming back to you to give your closing statements in 1 minute each. But as we wait for that, in case there's any member of audience who would like to comment or to raise any concern, raise your hand, I'll see it, then immediately pick you. But before we get to that, we have a gentleman here by the name Dolaman Fatinato. Dolaman Fatinato is an expert on gender issues and issues of adolescence. And on the 25th day of September 2019, he wrote a very amazing article on the Star. States should reach out to youth to raise contraceptive use. Dolaman is in our midst. Dolaman, if you can turn on your video and maybe give us what you think about this debate and what you think about this motion altogether, that others believe that the use of contraceptives amongst young people is actually the greatest threat to morality of the same young people today. While others are saying no, let us not take that direction. Dolaman Fatinato, welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you see me?
Yes, turn on your video. Okay, go on.
Okay, thank you very much, Opondo. And I must congratulate the debaters for doing us justice by doing extensive research on the topic. And as the proposers and opposers of the motion have mentioned, all what they have mentioned are very, very important, because when you look at morality, social control in a society is very important. And provision of contraceptive or family planning is equally important. So first of all, I may sound a little bit biased, but I hope we stick to the objective of this discussion. Number one, I must mention that provision of contraceptives are based on human rights. So it's very voluntary, and also the provisions are given, providing contraceptives are based on informed decisions where you're not forced, you're given information comprehensively to ensure that the disease, you deciding that you're going to get a contraceptive, is that you have adequate information on the benefits and consequences, if there are any. Then to point number two, we know that our sexual debut in our country has been dropping year after year. The current sexual debut, or the current sexual debut, stands at the age of 15 years, which means that very young people are having sexual intercourse at a very early age. And that's the fact that we must allude to. Another thing is that we've also have a perennial problem of teenage pregnancy in our country. We've had a perennial problem of teenage pregnancy in our country. And we know the impact, that vast impacts of this is, which includes dropout of school among adolescent girls. So I think provision of contraceptives can go a long way in helping us to step out of this problem. Then the last thing that I'd also like to mention is maternal mortality in our country, which has also been another problem, and especially among adolescent girls and young women. WHO has something that we call healthy timing and spacing of pregnancy, where we say that too early, too soon, or too late is dangerous for pregnancy. We have ages that are the healthiest for a person to have or carry a pregnancy. When you're saying too early, means that if a young girl gets pregnant at the age that is below the age, at the age that is below 18 years, is at a risk, is at the risk of adverse maternal and perinatal outcomes like infections. The girl might also be at a risk of the girl might be at risk of losing her life because her reproductive health or reproductive parts have not developed enough to carry pregnancy. Also, when a pregnancy is too soon, the interval is too small, it also presents some other maternal and perinatal risk to the girls. Lastly, something called demographic dividend. We know that as a country, we have a very bulging population of young people. And so investing in contraceptives can really help us from family level to the national level. When we have young people or accessing contraceptives, that means that they are able to plan their life well. They're able to have kids who they are able to take care of at the family level. At the national level, it means that the country is also able to take care of these people because we have people who are productive and they are able to contribute to the economy productively. Then I'd also like to highlight one thing that is very important, and I had one of the debaters mentioning, is that abortion in our country is not illegal, rather restricted. Abortion is restricted on basis that if the life of a mother is at risk, a mother is allowed to procure an abortion if the life of the mother is at risk, and this must be advised by a medical doctor or guided by a medical doctor. Also to also mention is that according to the WHO, the latest guide on providing family planning services is that there is no any proven data or evidence that any contraceptive causes infertility, according to the WHO latest guideline, which is 2018. Yeah, that's all that I have. And I also like to mention that social morality in relation to contraceptives is based on specific social norms and beliefs. So it's very important to have moral control or social control in our societies, but it is equally important to also recognize the lived realities of our generation today or our lives today. Thank you, Pondo.
Thank you, Dolaman. Thank you, Dolaman. So just receiving two more comments, not any question to be specific. Please, if you have a question, don't ask it now because that time passed. John Ohisa Oduho. Okay.
Yes, I have.
Yes, go on.
Now, just to conclude, I'll be so. It is on the issue of objectivity versus subjectivity. I have heard the proposers of the motion being fairly subjective on the subject matter, and my submission would be that it allows for a certain level of ambiguity that is unbound, and as such, therefore, it creates a certain level of uncertainty about what exactly they're trying to say on the subject of morality. As such, I would commend the opposers of the motion on being very subjective, or rather being very objective on the subject matter in bringing hard evidence onto the table, in addressing the matter based on empirical studies that have been, I believe, is a basis on which we should allow ourselves to be informed and hence make decisions. Thank you very much, Bonapondo.
Thank you. Any other hand that is up? Now I'll move straight away to the debaters. The first speaker, After hearing all this from Dolaman Fatinato to John Ohisa Oduho to any other person who asked a question and to fellow debaters, have you changed your stance? You came in believing that the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality amongst young people. There were those who were saying no, and there, of course, there are those who are agreeing and saying, yeah, it is true. It is the greatest threat. Have you changed your stand? In the next 1 minute, make us believe that we should all move towards your side. Francisca Majala, 1 minute for you. 1 minute begins now.
It is clear that contraception is something that is accepted by the wider society and it is useful, but it is still a threat to the morality of young people. Having seen that it is a form of abortion, it causes people to have sex outside marriage, it clearly shows that it is a form of immorality in the society today. And you know, if we yield an immoral society of young people, then we don't have a tomorrow, because the young people, for us to have a brighter and a better tomorrow, then we need the minds of these young people who are morally upright and they fit in the society as well. So I still stand by the motion that contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality today. Thank you.
So you have not switched any side. So you still stand that the use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality of young people today. Thank you. First speaker, the opposing team, Florence Achala. All right, go on.
Birth control is a controversial topic because the medication which came to be called the pill was controversial then and remains to be controversial today, largely because of the shenanigans in the healthcare bills aimed at replacing the Affordable Care Act. The pill was revolutionary. The immorality in contraceptives is the absence. Contraception is not wrong. Using contraceptives is not wrong. The moral case for contraception is largely based on the absence of it. So among the young people, the absence of contraceptives while engaging in the sexual activity brings about the immorality part. So I still stand my ground to say that contraceptives is not a threat to morality. Thank you.
Florence Achala still believes and makes us stand that it is not a threat to morality of young people. Second speaker, the proposing side, Paul Kitui, have you changed your mind?
No, I haven't. And in my final argument, I want to be very unequivocal about this. Now, my friend Stephen talked about comprehending something. Now, this is something I want to put out very clear for everyone there to see. Why not reduce abortion cases when you can totally eliminate them? Why? That birth control should not be post-conception. I mean that when having intercourse, you could use barrier methods that prevent conception, no child, or have intercourse with the intention or with the readiness of having a child, one of two, like 1, 2. So you don't need to create a third path whereby you have to reduce abortion when you can totally eliminate it. Now, with a comment from Dolaman also made me realize there is something I hadn't mentioned, and that was unrestricted and legal. Yes, that's true. Abortion itself is allowed when the mother has a serious chance of not surviving, and you can also decide to, not have children when there is a threat of passing hereditary diseases to them that make them suffer. So it will be better if they didn't live, or maybe age factors and so on. And contraceptives themselves do not cause abortion. Contraceptives simply make the uterine lining hostile. So that means if the child gets out well and good, that's fine. But there is also a chance where this child might have had some problems growing up or developing during the gestation period. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stephen Omukoko, have you changed your mind on this motion?
Not really. I've not changed my mind. In fact, I have grown stronger in my belief. Okay, thank you. So I think morality is a line in the sand, and like it's one that can be erased anytime and moved, because we do not discover, we do not realize that there is morality. We invent morality. We make it based on our context. And I think we have to appreciate that the world has moved, and where we are right now, we can choose to remain in the back, but then that has consequences which can only be overcome if we are willing to take the approach of accepting contraceptives. While we understand that there are negative effects of using contraceptives, that's why we need to do more about it and make sure we advance in our research so that they are made even much safer than they are right now. But it will be naive to imagine that we will one day live in a society where all young people will abstain and they will not have sex at all except for reproduction. That is just unrealistic, and we need contraceptives to deal with this reality. Thank you.
The use of contraceptives is the greatest threat to morality of young people today. We started this debate 1 hour ago with the proposers being Paul Muhisa Kitui and Francisca Majala, believing that it is the greatest threat to morality of young people today. On the other hand, we had Florence Achala and Stephen Omukoko firmly believing that it is not a threat at all. We come to the end of this debate, but is there any member of the audience who has changed his or her mind? Mr. Julian Masharia, have these people given you any reason to shift? Mr. Who else is okay? Julian Masharia.
Hi. Yeah, I was saying I think it's very interesting debates. I think what I would just say is for everyone just to fact check. I think what tends to happen in debates is a lot of passion. And I think it's about being able to debate and at some point suspend the person, especially on such a controversial issue. I notice it's easier to debate on inanimate things. When it comes to something like contraception, which all of us are battling on where we stand, it's just to be able to lay the issues on the table and then debate. So me, I'll reserve my perspective for my vote, but thank you for the engaging conversation.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much. Anyone on the panel, member of audience, would like to tell us whether he or she has changed his or her stand on this motion before we call it a night? Derek, where you are here, who else is here? We have Kamzi, we have Kiongozi Alphonse. Lord Lushiri, would you like to say something? Manoti, have you changed your mind now that you asked a question? Have you changed your mind on this topic, sir?
I think, first and foremost, I would like to thank my good friend for putting clear points on on abortion. That's Majala. I think at the moment, the use of contraceptives is more important than the people who are affected, because I can be at age of 15 years, I can be at an age of 23 probably. I'm at 18 and I can use the contraceptives safely. I'm at 25, but I can't use the contraceptives correctly. So its use is more important than anything else. In any case, we want to promote morality. But again, awareness need to be done on how to use some of these drugs. They are very dangerous. As a health worker, I can tell you for free that we sell these tablets, the Cytotec, the misoprostol we are talking about. Its function is to contract the uterus in order to expel the fetus. We have turned the use of drugs into business. You know, the 4 tablets go at 2,000 shillings. Okay. It's so easy for you to give the tablets, but you can't advise on how they will safely expel the fetus. So where did the rain start beating us? First of all, the people who are able to, the health sector, they have been able to give these drugs to the public in excess, to an extent that medical students, local guys in the hood can be able to get the contraceptives, and even our pharmacies are able to sell them. If you go with a prescription to a pharmacy, you will get the drugs. You just say my patient has been sent. So really, rules on how to regulate the distribution of these drugs is essential, but most importantly, its use. Yeah, thank you for the chance.
Thank you, Manoti. Let's finish with Mr. Masolia. Mr. Masolia is a teacher that has coached most of these panelists here on stage. Paul Kitui, you might have met him, though you were in Kakamega High School. Stephen Mukoko, you met him. He's such a wonderful debating teacher and a trainer. Mr. Masole, if you can hear me, you can say hello once more to these amazing debaters on the panel. Then we call it a day. Mr. Masole?
I think the challenge in this debate has been quite interesting in the sense that we're talking about a threat to morality. Now, when we look at contraceptives, what are they meant for? They are meant, is it purely for the purpose of avoiding pregnancy, or is it a purpose of family planning?
Okay.
Because in my opinion, young people have no business in sex. Instead, contraceptives were designed for the people who are in marriage to help them plan their families. So whoever was proposing this, I think they had a very easy time, in my humble opinion. Otherwise, I think, as I said in the debate, it's not about being right. It's about winning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing. 13 minutes past 9 p.m. is African time. Thank you so much, Stephen Omukoko, joining us from Switzerland. Keep on the spirit of debating. Paul Mwisa Kitui from the Nairobi University here in Nairobi, Majala Francisca, and Florence Achala. First of all, congratulations. You did your KCSE and the results were out 2 days ago. We thought you could not show up to the panel because of the panic mode and all that, but you kept on doing your research. And you also created time to talk to each other via Zoom and via other platforms to make sure that this debate was possible. To every team member who helped in making this a reality, I'm eternally grateful for all that support. We are meeting again next week on Thursday, 8 to 9 p.m. East African time. The posters will be out, and of course, the motion will be out right on time. For the debaters who did the debate last week, you are amazing people. Your topic of discussion was one of the most controversial one, considering what is happening in Kenya today. The motion was that the civil protests and demonstrations are the sure way to fighting corruption. On the proposing side, we had Lennox from Alliance High School and Wilder from Tigoi. I mean, these are the alumni from the schools that I'm mentioning. On the other side, we had Derek, the former president of Olympic High School. And who else was on that side? Dorcas Lungashi, also an alumnus of St. George's. And of course, you know what happened the week before that. We want to keep this spirit. We are not here to judge. We're not giving any results at the end of this debate, but now we are letting it to you, the people who are viewing, those who are watching and commenting. Let's keep on these amazing discussions. And in case you have any interesting topics or motions you'd like us to discuss, you can send the messages to our via inbox, Camp Voices. And of course, you can also reach us at campdvoices.com. See you next time. I've been your host, Okoth Opondo from the Camp D Voices. Good night to everyone.